Now, the World Economic Forum is concluding in Cape Town today. The main focus has been on Africa's growth, with infrastructure said to be the factor holding the continent back. CNBC Africa's editor-in-chief, Geoffrey spoke to Geoffrey, Qhena, CEO of the IDC, to find out more.
My impression has been good so far. I mean, it's day one in earnest of that. Yeah. Although we started yesterday with some of the other sessions, but I've been encouraged. Yeah. Also, it's because not only the interest of Africans, but in the discussions that I've been, there's lots of people who are outside of Africa. Yeah. That shows that there's an interest in Africa as a continent.
Right. Yeah. And in terms of your one-on-ones meeting and the interest that you talk about, how strong is that? And are there any specific areas of focus for people who are looking at the continent from outside?
You've mentioned infrastructure. I think that's one area, and people have realized that that's an area where we can improve. Yesterday, in fact, where the discussion where I participated on is on the green side, right? As on the green energy, not only on the generation, but on the energy savings and all of that. The discussion was very good.
Should we be worrying about that, Jeff, given the fact that we're struggling to supply any kind of energy at all? Should we not then talk about green energy after we've first of all satisfied the basic needs of people?
I think we need to do both.
Right.
Because if we're not careful, the environment will catch up with us. Yeah. So it's important that we do that. And in fact, what was actually quite interesting is some of those that are not necessarily from Africa, in particular in South Africa, they're actually trying to learn from us, the South Africans, how well we've done that. So to show that, I mean, there's something that we do. I don't think we should, even the Minister of Water, or the South African Minister of Water, actually, Affairs and Environment, and she actually mentioned that, that as much as we still have to do the conventional, we'll have to continue to generate energy using coal, but it's important that we look at the environment. Sure. Because not only because he's interested in environment as a portfolio, but it's the right thing to do. So I think we need both. In short, I mean, we need to do both.
Yeah. Now, of course, the funding gap around infrastructure has been with us for a long time. I remember the first time that someone actually actualized a figure around it was when we had Nigeria's finance minister, when she was still at the World Bank, and she spoke about that $90 billion annual funding gap for infrastructure. I had another figure today coming from the African Development Bank where they talk about potentially about 50 billion that's still missing, and how that's impacting Africa's agriculture going forward. Sorry, infrastructure development going forward. But my question is, number one, where do we find the money? Number two, how do we finance it in an innovative way so we're able to attract new capital that's not been coming to the party, if you like, or that's sitting elsewhere, parked elsewhere, where probably the returns are not as good as if that money came to infrastructure?
You know, there's a point which the CEO or the president of the African Development Bank said today.
Yeah,
Mr. Kaberuka. What he said was, it is important for us to also look at ourselves in financing some of this infrastructure. Right. But if you look at our pension funds, if you look at our own savings as countries in Africa, I think it is important that we also channel it, because that gives confidence from those that come out.
I'm hearing actuaries going, hey, don't touch those, and I'm hearing all pension fund managers say, hello, this is our people's money here.
Obviously, we're not saying we should be reckless, but I think it is important that we take the lead. If we don't take the lead, there's development finance institutions you've mentioned, that also says to the governments, help recapitalize some of those development finance institutions that are not recapitalized, so that we can take that long-term view. And we know there's Basel now, which is putting pressure on the banks in terms of the capital adequacies and all of that. Now, if there's no comfort that there is access to long-term finance, it becomes difficult for you to be innovative in ensuring that we have to participate in what is very key, the infrastructure.
Is that a conversation you've started, Jeff, with the government about potentially recapitalizing the IDC, for instance?
Well, I think IDC is probably sitting at a relatively pretty position. Sure. But at this stage, our balance sheet is very strong. What we are actually doing is we're leveraging our balance sheet. So we're not having that conversation yet. Okay. But I know some of the other African development finance institutions need serious recapitalization. And I think it's important for those governments to actually look at it. For us, as I must say, the investment that we've made in the past have helped us to continue to ensure that we play a role without necessarily going capital. But it also brings in a discipline that when you make those decisions, you are comfortable that they are sustainable.